Hello, welcome everyone to From the Ground Up. My name is John Boytnott. I'm your host. This is a Grit Daily sponsored podcast on the Grit Daily Network, and CEO Official Mag is our main website. The show is From the Ground Up. We talk to entrepreneurs about the companies that they're running and the missions that they have in the world. The hope is that entrepreneurs out there who are watching can get some good advice on how they can run their businesses a little bit better, whether it be marketing, leadership, HR, whatever the case may be. And today I'm joined by Arvind Parthasarathi, founder of Signis. How are you doing, Arvind?
Good, John. Thanks so much for having me on the program.
You are the founder of Signis. Tell us about yourself, Arvind, and tell us about Signis and what you guys are doing.
Well, the company was started in 2020, actually on January 31st, 6 weeks. We didn't realize that the world would shut down 6 weeks later. But the genesis of the company was actually even before that. After my last startup, I actually worked on a nonprofit with about 9 universities globally, including Stanford and MIT in the US, but also like the University of Tokyo, with the University of Munich, Oxford, London School of Economics, etc. And it was a truly global effort to work on a standard of care for cybersecurity, especially for boards and management. And we spent close to 18 months working with researchers from all these universities. And the key takeaway from that project, which we used to call Crossroads, is that the world is really at a crossroads around cybersecurity. I mean, we spend so much money on trying to prevent one of these incidents or massive outages that when it does actually happen, it is a tremendous amount of chaos. Even starting out with everything that we take for granted. Well, something's happening. I'm going to email you. Oh, I can't. Email is down. Oh, I'm going to log into all these applications. Oh, I can't. It's actually been compromised. Or SSO is not working. Or, when you take out that foundation that organizations rely upon on a daily basis, the entire infrastructure just comes crumbling down. And then you don't really know, how do you react? How do you respond? We spoke to so many organizations that, in the middle of a crisis would actually go back to, personal email addresses and personal messaging tools and things like that. And that just was not the right way for a large or medium-sized or even small organization that is trying to respond to a crisis. And so that was the genesis of the company. And the name of the company was off of that crisis, right? We've all heard about the Black Swan, just sort of this event that you assume is never going to happen to you, but it actually happens with increasing frequency. And there have been books written about it and so forth. And so Cygnus means swan. However, Signis with a U, which is the way it's spelled, there was somebody who owned that domain name and wanted a lot of money for it. So we said, all right, fine, we'll go with Signis with a V, and went down that path. And here we are 5 years later. Customers love the edginess of the name, and we've always tried to have fun with the V. But that's the company in a nutshell.
Oh, this is ironic because you guys help out with Black Swan type events and bad situations that occur in business. And then 6 weeks later, we have this giant global Black Swan event. I think a lot of people out there would love to know, beyond the irony of that, what was it like trying to get your company off the ground and moving in the middle of such a thing? I don't know.
It was very interesting because, literally, I think on January 31st, it was me and a few others. We got together in a room and we had all these intrepid plans of how we're going to build all this. And then 6 weeks later, we can't even meet each other, right? Like we're all, segregated and whatnot. But it actually teaches you, I think, a tremendous amount about resilience, right? Because what we're building is a platform for resilience. And it made us more resilient and the kind of company we're building more resilient. And every step of that way, I think every month or every week, we were talking about, well, this is exactly what we're trying to help people with, right? So whether they're massive outages of major systems or big hacks or data breaches or whatnot, it feels like you're all alone. It feels like you've got nowhere to turn. It feels incredibly despondent. And that's really what we wanted to address. So we spent the first couple of years just sort of bootstrapping and building the company from the ground up. And then we launched the company in January of 2023. And today we have over 2,500 customer organizations on the platform. We run about 50 new major incidents and outages every week on the platform. And you know that all of these, like if you think about one way of measuring our success, it's the fact that all of these incidents that our customers deal with are not winding up on the front page of the newspapers, right? They're all being successfully resolved. And I think that is the resilience that we really wanted to build in the world where, today if a hurricane comes in or you have any other kind of crisis, organizations are prepared. They know what to do. They've got the drill down. And cyber is new and it's scary and it has all these dimensions that people are not familiar with. And that's really what we wanted to help them do, build that muscle so organizations can go, listen, I can't stop this, but I can be resilient and get back to business quickly, for my customers, for my employees, for everybody else that's required, and just move on. And I think that is the resilience that the pandemic even taught all of us. And in our small way, we really want to try to help that be the help Signis be the platform that can help everyone else be that form of resiliency.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you guys, Signis is described as an out-of-band cybersecurity incident response platform. Okay, well, explain to us what that means. How are you guys different from other cybersecurity solutions? I think
a lot of cybersecurity is trying to prevent one of these events from happening to you, right? They're going to try to catch the event before it becomes something, catch the bad guys before they get into your network. If they are in your network, somehow try to isolate them and get them out. Signis actually takes the opposite perspective that says, listen, why don't you start with the assumption that something bad's happened to you, right? Somebody is in your network. You have been compromised. You have been breached. What are you going to do? Now, at that point, all the effort and investment on trying to prevent is not relevant anymore. Now what you've got to do is figure out how do you get yourself out from the situation. And that means, working with your board, with your management team, with the IT security teams, with the internal people in legal, with your marketing people. And it becomes kind of a whole company effort where you're now having to get yourself out of this. It's no longer a technical issue. And oftentimes you're working with third parties. It could be an outside counsel that's helping you. It could be a forensic firm. It could be an insurance company. And so suddenly you've got this sort of massive team of people that are spanning IT security people, business teams within the organization, executives, board members, and all these third parties. And they have to come together to figure out, how do you react? How do you respond? How do you contain? How do you message to the world? Increasingly now you have to tell regulators. You may have to tell your customers. And so all of that is now part of the response. And what I think organizations are realizing, and as we see, thousands of these breaches a year, we're realizing that whether you have a $2 million event or a $20 million event, a $200 million event, or a $2 billion event, the key is going to be those first 72, 96 hours after an incident is detected. Because how you behave, what do you do, can really determine whether you have a $2 million event or a $2 billion event. And I think that is really what we're trying to help organizations. And the concept of an out-of-band platform is where you want to be able to do this when your entire network is down. Your network may be compromised. The bad guys might be reading all the emails. They may be on all your messaging tools. They may be inside your applications. So you can't really use your existing setup to respond to this particular crisis. It's almost like a hurricane bunker or a nuclear shelter. You kind of need to go off-site. You need to go somewhere else, bring your core people together, figure out what you're going to do, and then execute on it. And that effectively is what Signis does. And there's a lot of technology and patents and things like that and being able to build this capability, but that's the genesis of the idea, which is you need something out of band, separated from your network where you can react and work together to make this work.
Well, on your end, there certainly is a lot that goes into formulating a solution like this that people can utilize. So let's go for some insights into the development process of this. What are some of the key milestones and challenges that you guys faced creating your product out there?
Well, I think the most interesting thing oftentimes is just this concept of out of band, right? Because so much of our life is based upon our identity, and our identity oftentimes comes from the email address we use, or the phone number we use, or the single sign-on system, or the directory system we're part of. And if you take out any of those core bricks of this foundation, how do you identify that John is who he says he is? And how do you identify, especially in a world with deep fakes and so forth? So even just starting out by saying, what is identity in an out of band environment? And then, if you think about a lot of what we do, we have to bring in third parties. You have to bring in an outside counsel. You have to bring in your forensic firms. You can bring in, we've had customers that have had, 22, 23 third party organizations that have helped them in the middle of an incident. And so now just creating a platform where you can bring all these people in and manage all their data and their access control, who gets to see what, that is a challenge in itself. And then being able to deal with the fact that you might then fire some of these third parties. You might start with a law firm, and then a week later, you might decide to change law firms. And so all of that complexity is built into the real world handling of a major incident type. And I think that's an important aspect of what we do. There's a ton of capability that is required to sort of underwrite all of this this infrastructure. And I think the most interesting thing that I always like to tell people is that an incident is one of those things that you really don't expect to happen to you. But when it does, for some reason, it always is all about edge case management. It's not about the common case. The most bizarre things happen on incidents, right? Which is, like, I'll give you an example. It rarely happens during the week. Like, most incidents we see generally happen on a Friday or Saturday night. So that, by definition is now stressing who's available, what's happening. People are not sitting at their desk. They may be traveling, they may be at a conference, they're on vacation, right? And all these people are doing different things. And so I find that I like to akin incident management. It's kind of like making a defibrillator, right? Because you see that defibrillator every day, and you walk past it every day, right? But when it has to be used, it just needs to work. Like, that is not the time when someone says, hey, you know what? I really want my defibrillator to be pink, or I want my defibrillator to have this really cool user interface, or I want my defibrillator to also make me toast, right? Like, no, you just want it to work, right? And I think, for us, we hold ourselves to that same kind of standard, because when people use our platform, they're not in a happy place. Right. And our job is to give them that confidence, give them that game. And so it's a lot about just making sure that it just works.
Yeah. So let's talk about how you guys help organizations prepare for and manage these cyber incidents. Then, what are some? Can you elaborate on the importance of what an incident response plan looks like? Tell us a little bit how that response looks.
So I think when you think about most organizations, they will have some kind of incident response plan, because sometimes it's a regulatory requirement, sometimes it's a customer requirement, it's a board requirement. But unfortunately, oftentimes these plans could be 50 to 100 pages. Yeah. No one's ever read them. Or Kathy made it, and Kathy's left the company 2 years ago, right? And it hasn't been touched for 3 years, right? Like, I mean, these are not, I don't mean this pejoratively. I mean, these are what we see every day. Right. Yep. And do people even know where the plan is? Right. Or are they expecting Joe to give them the plan? Oh, and by the way, Joe's on vacation at the time of the incident. Right. Like, so there's just all of these assumptions about this plan. The other funny thing that I oftentimes see is that incident response plan has been written almost as a regulatory checkbox. Right. So it gives you some high level anodyne statements, but nothing tangible that I would actually do in the middle of an incident. I've heard other customers tell us that the incident response plan is so well written, it's 200 pages, and nobody knows that you got to go to page 57 for this particular situation, right? And so I think what we've done is we've taken something that's a nice artifact, but it has been sort of turned into this weird sort of thing. And so a lot of what we're trying to do is effectively get away from the world of 200-page documents and to have something be very, very crisp, be guided. Oh, what's your role? Well, you're the PR person. Well, you need to do these 3 things, right? And let me tell you what the 3 things are. And then when you're done with the 3rd thing, I'll tell you 2 more things that you need to do. Or when you're done with your 2nd thing, I'll let John know that he needs to go. So all that workflow, all that choreography, all that guidance, it's step by step. Like, I'll give you another interesting example, right? So when someone's in a crisis, like we've done a lot of software development examining people in crisis. And people in crisis don't think the way normal people do. Like, if you go to a person in crisis and you give them 11 things to do, they're not going to do anything. because they're just going to be overwhelmed. So you got to start to think about how much capacity does that human being have to process something and build the plans around something like that. It's got to be bite-sized. If I tell you do this, then you go do that, right? I mean, it's a lot easier than giving you 21 things to do and you go, oh my gosh, I'm just overwhelmed. So I think for us, it's about turning that incident response plan into step-by-step, role-based guidance, very, very specific. I don't have to read anything. It's right in front of me. It's in my pocket. And now I know exactly what to do. And I think that is sort of that transformation. And then the key thing about a lot of these plans is they have to be maintained. Because you can't just do it once and be thank you very much, right? Because the world is changing. The scenarios we're dealing with are changing. Something happens to one of your peers, you're going to have to update your incident response plan, right? Something, your plans are, and people are changing in the organization, right? People are changing roles, they're changing jobs, new people are coming in, old people are leaving. So the response plan has to go away from being the static document to being like a living, breathing application. And that basically is what Signis turns it into.
That's great. Okay, so one of the things that you emphasize is the need for tabletop exercises, playbooks. We're talking about simulation and training here ahead of time. I suppose just tell us more about all of that. How do these types of simulations enhance an organization's readiness for real life incidents that occur?
So the tabletop exercise, or some people call it a rehearsal war room exercise, is I think a very powerful tool. And it helps the organization almost calibrate how well they are prepared for a real incident. And it too is often a regulatory requirement. If you're a public company or in certain critical infrastructure, you have to actually do these. But again, I think the challenge is historically what we've done is we bring everybody together and we have a lovely discussion. And 2 hours later, everyone's forgotten all about it, right? And I think what we need to do is change that into a fashion where we're actually like training where you fight, right? Like if you think about that metaphor, it's about you need to be in the same environment. Like you don't want to be on a lovely conference call that will not be working at the time your incident's working, right? Like you need to be in Signis in the same environment. That's where you need to practice. You need to practice where you're going to fight. And then you need to use your playbooks. So if you've actually created this extensive playbook, then you got to use that. You just can't use something specific for the scenario. So it's about in the same environment with the same people, going through that same exercise. And I think running those tabletop exercises in Signis really gives people the opportunity to sort of prepare and then practice. And the more often you do it, the more prepared you are. Like we've got customers that run anywhere from like 10 to 12 tabletops a year. Like they're doing one once a month. And now they're building that kind of muscle memory where now the organization is ready and thinking through all of what's required. And for them, they don't have to think now. They're just executing. And the analogy I'll give people is, if you think about people in the military and like a submarine or a nuclear submarine where, you're out for 6 months, if you really think about what they do, most of the time, they're just practicing. They're just drilling constantly. Because, you're in the middle of the ocean. It's, there's very little you're actually going to be able to do other than drill. And so the reason they keep drilling is because hopefully it doesn't happen, but if it does happen, they're not thinking. They're just on autopilot because it's muscle memory. And I think it's the same thing for an organization when they're building that kind of muscle memory for an incident. The more you practice inside the platform, the more you build that muscle memory, and the more during a real incident, you're not having to think. Because it's that ad hocness. Oh, let me come up with some great idea, or let me go do this. That's when you get into trouble. And so I think being able to have those playbooks, think through that, and make decisions and get people accustomed to that is what the power of the tabletop exercise really is.
That's great. Yeah. One of the questions that I wanted to ask you a little bit later, but I think I'm going to try and move it up here and ask you about it now is crisis management, actually saw, I wanted to see if I could get you to discuss a specific incident where Signis played a important role in the managing of a crisis. So take us through that. Give us a look at one of the crisis incidents that you guys help manage over there.
I mean, as I said, we do almost 50 new major incidents a week on the system, right? Wow. And often, and the good news I think about that is that we help our customers resolve them before they become the major crisis. right? Because if you are able to get into it immediately, and like the first aspect is just mobilizing people, right? If it's Saturday night, let's say 9 p.m. Eastern, you're just coming out of a show and something's happened. The first question for you is, you're a global organization or whatnot. How do you mobilize people, right? How do you get people together quickly onto this environment where they're now ready to go off and do what they're doing? In a lot of cases in the past, we've had customers tell us that it used to take them sometimes, a week to mobilize the team, right? Whereas now in Signis, literally it's instantaneous. Like they can get everybody going immediately. Everybody gets a notification. They're inside the system. They're active. They're working through their thing. So that mobilization is the first major step forward that I think, people need to get. The second, I think, is bringing in all your third parties, because it's not just within the organization. Like as I mentioned, we've had customers where they've brought in 22 third-party organizations inside to help them. And now imagine thinking about the complexity of bringing in a lawyer from someone else, bringing in 4 different lawyers because you're in 4 different jurisdictions where the breach is involved, etc. And then once you're bringing people in, now you just want them to go do their job. Oh, you're in the PR team, you need to go write that press release. You're in the customer team, you need to start informing customers. You're in the security team, you need to contain this thing, right? You're working on the forensic side, figure out what happened, right? Someone's selling the board. Who's talking to the regulators and letting them what's known? Who's talking to law enforcement? It's almost like it suddenly becomes this massive project where you've got 100 plus people working on different aspects of it. And by the way, it's highly confidential, right? Because now who gets to see what is very, very important. Because if you share the wrong piece of information, you might be violating and losing legal privilege. And so confidentiality, managing access, and running this project plan. And then the other thing now is you're now having to do reporting, right? Whether it's reporting to the SEC, the federal regulators, state regulators, European regulators, a variety of countries have the regulators that want to know different aspects of the information, and they want to know it at different times, right? So one regulator may say, give me an update in 6 hours. Another one says 72 hours. So who's keeping track of all of this? Who do you need to tell when and how? And the information they want is also different, and they want different slices of information. So even that process, or while you're going through this incident and fighting on all these fronts, you're also having to tell the regulators about various aspects. So if you think about that kind of project, it's multifaceted. It's got so many different components, and that's why having a platform is crucial to being able to do this successfully.
And this is for smaller businesses. This is for bigger businesses. I mean, I suppose, are there kind of their primary users for Signis, or how do you tailor your solutions to meet the needs of big companies, little companies? Talk about that.
Well, actually, one of the things that we're very proud of is the fact that we have, small businesses on the platform, mid-market companies on the platform, as well as large enterprises on the platform. And the reason for that is because this is I think about cybersecurity as an existential threat in the 21st century, right? It's not like it's only going after the large ones. In fact, oftentimes there's been a lot of research written about how the larger organizations, yes, they're bigger targets, but they also have more resources, right? They have more security tools, they have more talent that they can hire, whereas people on the other side of the size spectrum, like smaller organizations, don't have the resources, they don't have the tools. So yes, people may not be coming after them as much, but if they do come after them, they're more likely to be successful breaking in. And so, and oftentimes with small organizations, it's existential. We've all seen large organizations have big major cyber events, and then they sort of recover, right? They go through the pain and deal with everything, and then 2 years later, the organization's fine. There was a variety of studies that said that 60% of small organizations, if they have an incident, they go out of business. So there's no coming back from something like that. So for us, I think we think about that entire spectrum, and the application and the platform has been suited. Like we've got people that have 5 users on the system because it's just the 4 or 5 people that are relevant, and it's a small business and they're using the platform for their needs. And we have organizations that have thousands of users on the system because they're a large organization and they have to deal with that scale. So and everything in between, right? And what we find is smaller organizations will tend to use a lot of the stuff that's in the platform out of the box, right? They'll use a lot of our incident response plans or everything that we do, or the tabletops and whatnot. They'll just take it out of the box because they're happy to just take it as is. larger organizations will tend to take what we have and then customize it extensively, frankly. So what we found is that a smaller organization may have one playbook. A larger organization or a large enterprise might have 22 playbooks, right? So the concept stays the same, but we are actually able to help organizations across that spectrum. A small organization may have 5 users, somebody else, larger one may have 500, right? And so I think in some sense, and somewhat sadly, I feel like cybersecurity in that sense is sort of an equalizer because it's a risk and a threat that's existential for the business, regardless of the size of the business.
Yeah. Well, what are the biggest challenges that organizations are facing as far as cybersecurity goes today? How do you see you guys evolving to meet those challenges? Also, tell us about the challenges that are coming in the next 2-3 years as well.
Well, I mean, I think we've all seen the advent of AI, and I think my perspective is we're seeing AI helping the bad guys a lot more because what's going on now is in the old days, and when I say old days, I mean like last year. So in the old days, a lot of the phishing or the ransomware would have to get targeted, right? And I don't have time to sit as a threat actor. They didn't have time to go look at everybody. They'd find key people and they would have to do it manually. And the way you'd find out is, oh, there may have been a typo or the logo might not be right. Or,
Right.
so there were all these small mistakes that you could go, oh, well, this doesn't look right, right? And that triggers, additional validation. And then you say, oh, well, that's actually phishing or that's ransomware. I think what's happened with AI is the first one is it cleans up all the mistakes. Now it looks perfect, right? Like, so now, there are no typos, no grammar mistakes, all the logos are correct, everything is done. Second, in the past, you had to target a limited number of people because you just didn't have the ability to do the research. Now we can actually say, oh, well, John goes to these websites, right? Has this kind of profile. So he's more likely to click on something when the link is coming from X website versus Y website, right? And now the AI is able to do that kind of targeting far more effectively. And lastly, the AI is doing it in automated fashion. So I don't have to target 5 or 6 people in the organization. I can target all the people in the organization and see what happens. And so what we're seeing is the offense has been helped a lot more by AI because we're already seeing it happen, right? And I think the challenge on the defense side is the fact that a lot of this information is siloed, right? I mean, nobody goes to, like, whenever, when we see our customers run a major incident, they run it inside a secure platform like Signis. They're not discussing it on any of the public discussion forums, right? Like they're not, and that's where the AI has been trained, right? So if you go to a traditional foundation model or anything and you ask them, well, help me with incident response, it's going to give you high level generic advice because no one has ever bared their soul in terms of the details of a highly specific confidential AI incident response to any kind of external data set that the AI has access to. So in some sense, I kind of find it an asymmetric environment where it's helping the bad guys more than it's helping the good guys. And I think that's kind of what we as an industry need to focus on. And that's why, you almost have to make the assumption that the bad guys are going to get in, right? Like you can't just make the assumption that you're going to fend off everything. And that's why I think we're seeing increasing interest in platform like Signis, because now you need to be in an out-of-band place where you can respond to all of this.
Well, okay, let's give some advice for entrepreneurs as we get towards the end of the interview here. Let's talk about the, as a founder in the tech and cybersecurity field, what advice would you give any new entrepreneurs that are showing up in the field and looking to enter the space these days?
I think the most important thing, in my opinion, is always product market fit, right? And I think they're entrepreneurs and companies that come at that product market fit from the product side because they have deep product expertise, and there are others that come out from the market side because they have domain expertise or they know what the buyers want, or they understand the problems. And I always say that it's very important to focus on that product market fit because because that is effectively the foundation upon which the entire company is built on, right? And the definition of product market fit is different for different industries, right? For different types of companies, right? Like an example, traditionally people have defined product market fit based upon, let's say, the amount of revenue you have. Well, but that's very different if you are signing, if your ASP is $1 million and you can get to that revenue number far quicker by just selling to your friends and family or people that know you, right? And so I think finding that right definition for product market fit is very, very important, because that is really what's going to help you understand, what is the scale of the business that you're building, and what is the efficiency of the business, and so forth. And we've been very fortunate, and Reason Horowitz has been a great partner, and they've spent a lot of effort on thinking about these problems of product market fit, just because they see so many companies. And I think we've learned a lot about how you define product market fit specific to Signis. How do you evaluate it? How do you measure it? Right? How do you measure it quarter over quarter? And that, I think, is the foundation, because that allows you to build confidence in different aspects of your business, whether it's your lead gen or your sales or your marketing or your support or any other aspect of your business. And then it becomes a way that you can actually calibrate different components of your business to what is the outcome that you're actually looking to engender. And so I'm a big fan of that focus on product market fit, and really zeroing in on making sure that you have it. If you're a product side, make sure you spend more time on the market. If you're coming at it from the market side, make sure you spend more time on the product. And then work with the right partners to help you clearly define it and then measure it continuously, constantly, so that you build your own confidence about, have you attained it? Where is it? Where does it need to be? And pretty much how you drive the rest of the company off of that.
Well, that's solid advice for entrepreneurs out there who are looking to get into the cybersecurity field. Appreciate that from you, Arvind. Advice for, folks out there who would like to actually find out more about Signis and see how they could possibly get your help, for any particularly difficult incidents that occur out there. How would they find you? How would they find Signis?
Well, I mean, definitely our website, CYGNVS.com, is a great place to get a lot of information. There are lots of resources. There's lots of customer testimonials and so forth. But I think, we'd be, off the website, we were happy to engage and show the platform. There's also numerous ways you can get access to Signis. Sometimes you may be able to get access to Signis through your insurance partners. And so your cyber insurance providers. So, our goal is to really be out there to try to help as many companies and organizations as we can, whether it's nonprofit or in various kinds of industries. And so, definitely welcome the opportunity to engage.
Arvind Parthasarathi of Signis, great to have you on From the Ground Up.
Thanks so much, John. Thank you for the time.
You got it. Have a great day.